Hello, welcome everybody to Remembering the Truth of Who We Are. I am your host, Jocelyn Mercado, and I'm so excited today to welcome Alexandra Pope and Shani Hugo Wurlitzer. Welcome, 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 ladies. I am so excited to have you as a part of this event.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. Thank you very much indeed.
Yes, yes. So for everybody out there in the audience, as you are joining, please go ahead and put your name and location in the chat so we can see where everybody is joining from. And I'm going to take just a moment to type that in the chat as well for those who join after hearing me say that.
Oh, here they come.
Yay, okay. Welcome, Janet from Kentucky. Welcome, Rosie from the UK. Welcome, Jill from England.
Drizzly Leeds, yes, Drizzly Malvern too.
Hi, Ibtisam, I see you there. Hi, Roger from Vermont. Hi, Marite from France. Hi, Leslie from Illinois. Welcome, welcome to everybody. So excited to have you all here. Welcome, Diane. Welcome, Kelowna. Hopefully I said that right. Beautiful. And I'm sure we'll have more people joining as we go. So to get started, Alexandra and Shani, I want to go ahead and read your bio here so that those of you who don't already know about your work can learn a little bit about you. So Alexandra Pope and Shani Hugo Wurlitzer are co-directors of the Red School, and they have developed a radical new approach to women's health and well-being, creativity, leadership, and spiritual life based on the power of the menstrual cycle. Published authors and experts in the field of women's well-being and spirituality, their most recent book is Wild Power: Discover the Magic of Your Menstrual Cycle and Awaken the Feminine Path to Power, which was published by Hay House in 2017. Between them, they have spent 40 years exploring and learning about menstruality from their own deeply lived experience and the collective knowledge they have gathered from working with thousands of women. Pioneering this field, they have created the most comprehensive and life-changing program available to date, offering in-person workshops, online courses, and professional training in the field of menstruality. So your topic today is the power of the menstrual cycle to heal the earth. And I just can't wait to get into all of this with you. So could you begin by sharing, what do you mean exactly then by the power of our menstrual cycle?
Shani, could I ease the way in with this?
Yeah, that's good.
The only reason really is because this is that question is the question I have been dreaming into and feeling into and courting all the years of developing this work. What do we mean? What is the power of the menstrual cycle? What does that actually mean? So there's a lot of layers to this for us. And the kind of headline statement is that the menstrual cycle is this initiatory process that's built into our being. And another way of describing it is that it is a spiritual process and practice. We talk about the menstrual cycle as the woman's spiritual practice. So it is, it's spiritual power. And initiatory power, and then through the art of, that's a sort of big statement, and then through the art of coming into relationship with your cycle, through the art of menstrual cycle awareness, as we call it, that what you start to do then is to actually call up very real powers, assets, if you like, resources that live within the cycle, that support us in different facets of our lives. Shani, would you like to take that one and run with it, just to describe the ways that the menstrual cycle itself holds all these different powers?
Yeah, that's beautiful the way you framed that, Alexandra. So there's this kind of overarching process that is happening from menarche to menopause. that is initiating us into our authority, into our into really occupying who we are as women and into our full power, if you like. And then each of the phases of the menstrual cycle process, which we refer to as inner seasons, each phase is like a season of our being and a season of our nature. And also each season has its own, well, I'm going to use the word climate, but its own territory, its own emotional landscape. And in that, it's like it's a different way of being that you enter that both nourishes you, but also gives you access to these capacities in yourself. So it's like a magnifying glass is held over these very particular aspects of your being, and in different seasons you can capitalize on these powers. So, you know, for example, I'm thinking of the inner spring of the cycle, which is the pre-ovulatory time. And there, you know, the landscape is, there's this natural rise in energy, there's a natural motivation that comes, natural hope and optimism. So you're gifted with this power of optimism, a capacity to feel the hope and possibilities. That's something you can then draw on. So each of these seasons got, I'm just giving you a very light touch of something there. There's a lot of complexity and depth to each season. It's, in a way, as deep and wide as we are as women. But each season in turn then creates this coherence for us and gives us access to the full range of powers that we as women have. And ultimately, actually I was feeling this when you started speaking, Alexandra, and this is the thing that really moves me about the menstrual cycle, is that ultimately its power is this power to bring us back to a sense of wholeness, to, you know, reconstitute our beings to this feeling of worthiness and rightness, to bring us back to this sense of love, you know, that we are love.
I always like to joke, Shani, you know how I like to joke about how the cycle has this remit to deliver home to ourselves. Now that's the heart of the power. You know, home to who we truly are. It's restoring us to ourselves, to our calling, to our full expression, and then supporting the full expression of that calling in the world. Gosh, we could talk forever on this one, Jocelyn. Does that? Oh, I just want to mention some of the powers of menstruation, Shani, because they're pretty cosmic.
Actually, yeah. Let's mention that before we move on.
If we're talking power, menstruation has serious powers, that inner season, which is that I just think this is so wild that each month, if a woman can honor the rhythm of her cycle and follow the way the cycle, the sort of the tendencies of her cycle, and of course at menstruation the tendency is to want to pull away from the world and to do nothing and to rest. And if a woman is able to do that, she can open the door to the most exquisite energies. And I'm not saying these words lightly. This can really happen for women, but ecstasy, an exquisite bliss, a feeling of divine union. And Shani mentioned love. I mean, there's the most exquisite experience of love, like you are washed with love, menstruation, and a kind of visioning. It's like an oracle, you know, you become an oracle. In other words, we can enter extraordinary altered states of consciousness naturally by doing nothing, in effect, just letting go. There's no agency here. It's about surrendering to the pull of the cycle. And if you can do that, then this whole cosmos opens up to you. Now, that is the most staggering power. It's really amazing. And imagine women tanking up on that every month. We want women to know that.
So beautiful. And that is, you know, that the fact that we are, you know, become more drawn inward, right? And we're not as wanting to be out there. We really need to take that quiet time. that's how we're meant to be at that time. We're meant to be receiving that bliss and that connection with more, with a higher power at that time. Like, that's what we're supposed to be doing then. It's
We
so
are. We
beautiful.
are. It's the anchor. It's the anchor of the cycle. And if you can tank up on that, then you are fueled for the whole month. It is the food of the soul, the chi that is and the physical chi you're going to get, but the nourishment of your spirit, of who you are, that really supports you to go out into the world and to stand for who you are in the world.
Yeah, so beautiful, so beautiful. So, well, tell us a little more about that then. How can we work consciously with our cycles to really open up to that, to what's available?
Shall I speak to this one, Alexandra?
Yeah, you're good at that.
I always realize as we start to riff about, these incredible powers of the cycle, that there will be people listening who are like, what? This is not my experience. Yeah.
And women who suffer as well, Sharon.
That's it. Yeah. Women who experience pain, and women who, have really extreme experiences premenstrually and things like that. So, we're fully aware of that. And so I would say the place to begin really is just to take stock of what your relationship is with your menstrual cycle. And that might require some undoing, because we've been taught that it's a hassle, and that it kind of gets in the way of us being able to live and be productive and all these kinds of things. So really just to start to shine the light on what is your relationship with this rhythm in your body, and then to find your peace with it, whatever that means to you, to just find a way of at least considering that it might be possible to build a relationship with these rhythm and changes in you. And I think really that's the first step, to find some acceptance, and then to seek cooperation. Think of it as a friend. That's how I like to think of my cycle, as a friend that I am cooperating with, that I'm learning to meet and respond to and really listen to. So that's the first thing. And in sort of practical terms, what that means is really tuning into your cycle. And that's an everyday thing, because every day as women we are changing. Every day our cycle is shifting us into different territory. We really are different every day. And so it requires this mindfulness. We talk about the practice of menstrual cycle awareness, and that is this mindfulness practice for women, where each and every day we just take stock of what day you're on in your cycle. So that's like a numbers thing. Day 1 is the first day of bleeding. You're just counting your way through each day of the month, but also tracking your mood and energy, the inner atmospherics that you're experiencing that day, which, if you haven't been paying attention, seem completely random. And then the moment you start observing it, you realize that there is indeed this rhythm, this pattern, and that these inner seasons are actually very distinct landscapes that we travel through. So that's the way to start to forge a conscious relationship, is to really pay attention each and every day. And we can talk more about menstrual cycle awareness at the end, but in a nutshell, that's it.
Beautiful. Yeah, I know in my earlier years, and in my teens and my 20s, I would feel so down, so sad during the premenstrual cycle, right?
Yeah.
And then I didn't know that it was part of this cyclical occurrence. And I would wonder, like, what's wrong with me? Why am I so sad? And then it would last longer. And then it would last into the time when I should be going into spring and summer of the cycle, right? So it's just so that knowledge that it is a cycle, that it comes around again and again and again, and that it's ever changing. Just that in and of itself, I think, is so powerful for all of us to really immerse ourselves in and become aware of, because just that can change everything. You know.
That's a powerful statement, actually, Jocelyn, that it can change everything, because there is some kind of magic that is almost activated when you start to do cycle awareness. At first, it might feel a little kind of ho-hum, you know, where's all the action? But actually, within a month, I would say, certainly within 2 months, you're going to feel, not only are you going to be discovering the patterns, you know, certainly with the second month, you're going to start to notice something, taking shape here. But the magic that I'm referring to is that it is as though something awakens inside you and comes to meet you. And one of the things that we've noted is that cycle awareness starts to generate an inner kindness with ourselves, because there's another stage to this cycle awareness work, which is not just only observing and noting where you are in the cycle, but then starting to organize your life around it, recognizing that you're not supposed to be the same all the time, and that there are these different states of being, and they're all valid. No one state is better than another. And that as you start to honor the different states, instead of expecting yourself to be in top gear 24/7, you recognize you have all sorts of different gears, and they bring different qualities to your life. That relation, you know, that, what's the word, Shani, where you're starting to...
Responsiveness.
Yes, responsiveness. That level of responsiveness is actually like a medicine that you're giving yourself. And it's like an inner dignity starts to grow in women, and their inner authority becomes clearer, and boundaries become stronger. It's just 101 for women in terms of helping them to establish and hold their boundaries. I would say that's one of the strongest things, isn't it, Shani, that comes through, along with this feeling of inner kindness. And the two go together, of course, because you're kinder with yourself. You're going, you know what? I'm not going to say yes to that, actually.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. I have a friend who she lights a red candle and just places it. She doesn't say a word, but for her family, you know, she has a husband and kids. And when she's starting her cycle, she lights, or maybe when the day before, you know, as we start to feel that way, she lights a red candle and places it on the dining room table. And so the husband and the kids just know to give her a little extra space, you know, that mom needs a little extra time to rest right now. And it's without words. I thought that was so beautiful.
That is incredibly beautiful. I love that. And I was thinking that, you know, I realized there are probably some men listening to this, and I'm so really grateful if you're a man out there listening to this. And the piece I want to add about cycle awareness is that it's a very beautiful thing if you know, as a woman, if you can share this with your partner and let them in on this pattern and process. And, you know, as you start to make sense of it for yourself, it's wonderful if the men in your life can learn about it with you, because it just builds such understanding and such appreciation. I know that's how it's been, you know, for me in my relationship is I without needing to say very much, a bit like lighting that candle, I can just reference the season that I'm in my cycle, and my husband has a handle on where I'm at and what some of my needs are. And the more I get to know that for myself, the more he gets to know it. So it creates this beautiful cooperation between us, and it sort of makes cyclical life kind of central to our family as well, which I just feel so healthy. You know, I've got two daughters. And you know, life is busy, Jocelyn. Life is busy, and you know, it's thank goodness to my cycle that we as a family have these times of activity and these times of rest. You know, and in a way, my family is following my lead. I feel like I'm setting the pulse for them. So this kind of cyclical awareness just becomes part of family life, and it helps us all to stay well. Really, it helps us all to stay connected and stay grounded and stay in touch with ourselves and each other. So it's a very beautiful thing for partners and for families too, you know, awareness of the cycle.
It's so wonderful that the whole family is is a part of that cycle, and
Yeah.
you can have, you know, resting times and more active outgoing times
Yeah.
based on
Yeah.
that cycle.
Yeah, I totally plan my activities with my kids according to my cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so the next thing that I would love to ask you both is, how can we see our cycles or work with our cycles as an initiatory process?
Good question.
Yes, good question. Well, initiation is the process of growing up, shall we say, or growing down into ourselves. It's moving from a sort of narcissistic self to a self that can encounter and hold and serve the other as well as oneself. And the menstrual cycle is exquisite in supporting us to grow up. Initiation is about a sort of death and rebirth process that goes on. The death of the ego, to be reborn in a sort of more expanded version of yourself. That is the nature of, you know, initiatory rites of passage. And we women have this initiatory rite of passage built into our bodies that activates us each month, would you believe? So we don't have to head off into the wilderness, although that's wonderful to do too. I love this, you know, that it's just happening in our day-to-day life. You know, we're washing up and there goes the ego. Ouch! So this is how it happens. The first half of the cycle is very much a wonderful rising current of a yes to our being. It's like where we're filled up with the rightness of who we are, the inner yes. So we get this lovely blast of something at menstruation, of this amazing sense of love and connection to who we are. And this fills us, and we sort of go out into the world. In the first half of the cycle leading up to ovulation, we have what we call the inner yes. It's a natural rising confidence, and it is all about our healthy ego being nourished and strengthened. So I always like to say this is about really, you know, strutting your stuff in the world. And when you get to ovulation, it's like, yes, this is me, and declaring yourself to the world, and you feel on top of the world, hopefully, and can feel like you're the queen of the world, and that you are, that nothing can defeat you, that you are indestructible. And this is so healthy and so wonderful. And you also know you're heading for a fall too, because no one is indestructible. But we like to think that we are. But the cycle, in its inimitable wisdom, goes, yeah, it's fantastic. Yes, I want you to sing your song as loudly as you can. That's magnificent to celebrate yourself. But I'm just going to just burst your little bubble a little bit. And it's a little bit like I always equate this to the 13th fairy in Sleeping Beauty. You know, she comes along to spoil the perfect party. And the princess, of course, gets her bubble blown, and she falls asleep. And we haven't got any handsome prince coming along. We're waking ourselves up. So the second half of the cycle is kind of the opposite process. It's a withdrawing in. It's a kind of deflation of something. So in the second half of the cycle, we become more permeable and sensitive, whereas in the first half of the cycle, we're building up more buffering, even more armoring, dare I say. And the second half of the cycle, that's getting subtly dismantled. And the importance of that is that it allows us to come back much more into our embodied nature, into our feelings, into our instincts and knowings, and awakens other sensibilities in us actually as well, like our intuition and our instinctual knowing and so on, our kind of sight, our ability to see through things and into things. So we are becoming more permeable, and as the further you go in the cycle, the closer you get to menstruation, you're actually becoming more and more tender. So long gone is that high sum of energy of indestructibility, and you are discovering that you are human after all. Fancy that. And this is very healthy and very good, but not, of course, if you suffer horribly here, and that's another conversation for which we have many responses. But there is a very precise moment in the cycle as you get close to menstruation where literally there is a sort of what we call the ego death moment. It's a moment where you suddenly feel like the ground has gone from underneath you. and like you're stepping into almost like a void. And this can feel quite challenging for some women, dark, very bleak, and even annihilatory. And but the more you are conscious of it, the more you can meet it and know, oh yes, woof. It is the moment where the ego dies and we go into the unknown. And actually what happens, of course, then is that we bleed. And the bleeding is the announcement of the beginning of the rebirth of our self again. So there is just, like, it can be, what, Shani? Anything for a couple of hours to a day or two, can't it? That place we call the void, actually, where you just don't have any ground under you. And I used to feel incredibly see-through at that time. And if anyone criticized me at that time, they could mortally wound me. But if they criticized me at other times of the month, well, I could take them on. You know, I could slug back, give as good as they gave me. But here, I was stung and I was gone. And all sorts of other things would go on. But there is no armoring here. You are at your most vulnerable. It is the most exquisitely raw, the rawest time of the cycle. And actually, for our money, the most powerful. But that's a separate conversation. So that is the ego death moment. And then as we bleed, a rebirth comes and we start off again. And we hope with a kind of new awareness of who we are. Because, of course, through the living of the whole cycle process, we're learning about ourselves. And we're learning about our strengths and we're learning about our vulnerabilities. And then this informs the next cycle. But of course, we don't understand this round. We're sort of doomed to repeat like a sort of hamster wheel going round and round. And it isn't a hamster wheel. It is a spiral. It's an evolutionary journey. So that eventually, when you come to the door of menopause, menopause is the final initiation. It is a massive death and rebirth process. And it's huge. It's much bigger than anything you've encountered before now, but you have been prepared for it. And it is a sort of final integrative piece to your whole evolutionary journey. So that post-menopause, in a sense, you are free now. The initiation is done. You have graduated. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. Shani, is there anything you would embellish on there that I missed?
No, that's beautiful. I was just thinking of the title of this event, Jocelyn, remembering the truth of who we are, and I was thinking that's what the initiatory process of the cycle feels to me. You know, month after month, is I really come back to the truth of who I am through this formation of my ego, and then letting it all go, and just and touching my deepest vulnerability. And every time I reach that place in myself, it brings me back. It brings me back to the truth of who I am. And it's like that kernel of my being can then flourish in the next month. And it's this almost like peeling away the layers of the onion. More and more of the dross just falls away every month. And it's this beautiful unraveling of, my own being and of knowing myself. So it's, your title fits perfectly what my experience of the cycle process is.
Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned that, how this topic ties in with, that remembering the truth of who we are. And I think another piece of that for me that I'd love to have you both speak about, if you'd like, is that we are the earth, that we are the seasons, that every single one of those seasons moves through our body every month. I just find that so powerful.
It is incredibly powerful, actually. It's beautiful.
Yeah, because we titled this conversation, "The Power of the Menstrual Cycle to Heal the Planet." I feel very moved when I say that, because in our work, we're working with women to support them to come into relationship with their cycle and to really live this power in their body. But and our our sort of high vision for, or the thing we're holding very dearly as we do this work, is the restoration, is the shifting of our relationship to the natural world. We that's really what it's about for us ultimately. So it's wonderful to speak of it in those terms. And for me, what it means is that, when we come into relationship with our cycle as women, it allows us to really feel the full spectrum of who we are. It keeps us sensing and feeling, and it really awakens our animal nature, and it helps us to be in the ground of our body and to really embody the fullness of this life force that is moving through us. And it keeps us awake, it keeps us sensitive, it really prevents us from getting hard and armored. So with that, we are really able to not only feel the fullness of who we are as life moves through us, but also to really feel the world and to really feel and be sensitive for all of life. And that, that then inspires care and love and action. That then inspires us to really connect with the world around us as we connect with this nature inside us. So for me, that's really right at the center of it. Alexandra, I'm sure you've got things to say about this.
Yes, I'd like to. It's such a huge question, this. It's a very bold statement that we've made. And there's something very sort of ineffable about it, but it's the ineffable that has such a powerful, packs such a powerful punch. But as a woman, as we work with this cyclical, as women work with this cyclical consciousness in themselves, it's as though we are restoring this cyclical consciousness to our daily lives, not just to ourselves, but to those around us. So we're building into our own lives and into the lives around us this responsiveness to life and a sense of pacing to our lives, allowing a spaciousness to come in. Because our whole lives today are lived 24/7 in sort of top gear. And this is like an armoring and a blinkering that we have that shuts out the world and deadens us. And it deadens the soul. It deadens the ineffable. It deadens the feminine. And the cycle awareness work is so simple that if one keeps a fidelity to it, there's this magic that moves through us individually and then into the world that is restoring these qualities of soul, of ineffability, of the feminine. And a world without soul is a violent world. A world without soul is a dead world. It's, I think of the huge mental health suffering that's going on. I see it all in the UK. I'm sure it's the same in the US. And this loss of meaning in our lives, feeling disconnected and lonely. And the cycle is so freaking magical. I'm always using this word magical, but it really works. It's so magical in awakening us to a sense of poetry, a sense of meaning, a sense of things being living and alive. That we're not just surrounded by inanimate objects, we're sort of surrounded by a living, breathing presence. I mean, I suppose I'm talking about the divine, actually. It opens us to a connection to something much more ineffable and mysterious. And it is this is the remedy that the earth is needing, the restoration of this ineffability, the restoration of soul. This is what has to come back for us to thrive, to survive and thrive, and to become what Claire Dubois, who you are going to be interviewing later this week. Oh, we so love her. She talks about becoming a restorer species. Cycle awareness is growing us into becoming restorer species. So, and I think I'll stop there. I could probably talk on, but I think I've said enough.
Yeah, it's so powerful. Thank you both. Yes, I think this is absolutely critical at this time in history, you know, for all of us as women and as men, you know, in supporting the women and you know, opening up to the fullness of what's there for all of us. Just such an important and critical part of reconnecting with the earth and reaching back to what we know is true from ancient times, the power that we know that we hold within us, that beautiful cyclical power. I love there's a Native American goddess who is called Changing Woman. And
Yeah.
I love her. So that's one of my favorites. She, you know, that's so powerful because we are, as women, we are changing women. We are always changing. We are different every day. And so is the earth. And we just have this deep, innate interconnection with her, with Mother Earth. Yeah, but you said it so beautifully. So I know that there is a special process that you wanted to share with all of our listeners. I welcome you to share that now if you feel it's a good time for it.
Yeah, that'd be lovely. Let me actually just say a couple of things before we do this. This process we would like to do with you is it's a process that we've developed, and it's called the Menstrual Medicine Circle, which is a sort of inner journey that we're going to take you on. And you would have heard a lot of what we're speaking about is about these very distinct kind of phases of the menstrual cycle process. And in terms of restoring our relationship with the cycle, this process can really help you to start to deepen your connection with your own lived cycle experience, but also to help you to really feel into each of these 4 phases. And in so doing that, it's like you are able to put the kind of pieces of this puzzle back together and restore the flow, restore the kind of organic rhythm and order, what we sometimes refer to as your inner ecology. And that creates a wonderful sense of coherence and balance and helps you to really be able to sort of locate yourself more easily. So what I'm going to suggest before we go into the exercise, and if this feels right for you, and I mean, men, feel free to join in with this sort of as a little experiment, because, you know, cycles are everywhere and you'll have your own way of connecting with it. And also for women who maybe don't have a menstrual cycle at the moment, either, you know, you're breastfeeding or your cycle's gone away, or for those of you who are post-menopause and have lost your cycle, we invite you to join in too, because there is some sort of magic that can happen when you tap into this. So we're going to be exploring the subtle energetics of the menstrual cycle process through this menstrual medicine circle. As I said, to give you a kind of deepening connection with your cycle, but also to help you to sort of feel into these different phases and find a cleaner, clearer flow from one to the other. Okay. Alexandra, is there anything you want to say before we start?
No, I'd say over to you, Shani.
Okie dokie. All right, beautiful. So this is going to be about 10 or 15 minutes, but I would suggest that you can make sure you're not going to be disturbed and just find a way to sit comfortably. Let me just shuffle up and let yourself settle. So finding a position that allows you to relax and feel supported. And if you haven't already, just let your eyes close. And bring your attention inside your body. So letting go of the conversation that we've been having, and, you know, whatever's going on around you, and really just draw your attention inwards inside your own skin. Take a moment just to feel the interior of your body. Maybe you want to wriggle around a bit in your chair. Maybe you want to roll your shoulders, roll your head, or shift your weight from side to side, just to feel some of the muscle and texture inside your own skin. Ah, beautiful. So here we are. As you breathe, give yourself permission with the next out breath just to drop in, to let go of any tension. Just become more and more present to yourself. Just feeling into your intention for this process. So what we're offering is an intention to come into a deeper relationship with your menstrual cycle. An opportunity for you to restore the flow and the ecology of your cycle just through this simple practice of giving it your attention. But find for yourself what intention really sits well with you. Okay, and then imagine in front of you the menstrual cycle. And just take a moment to clock the two poles of the cycle, the pole of menstruation and the pole of ovulation, which are opposite each other. Just clocking where they are. And then stepping into the center of your cycle. And just taking a moment to find your ground, to stable yourself here. Here at the center of your cycle, you can tune into the subtle energy, the field of your cycle. Just sensing now the phases of the cycle around you. So the phase of menstruation, the inner winter, the time of pre-ovulation, the inner spring, then the time of ovulation, the inner summer, and the time of the premenstruum, the inner autumn. So for me, I tend to imagine the inner winter behind me and the summer ahead of me, with the inner spring to my left and the inner autumn to my right, just to give you an orientation, but just sense that for yourself. And here at the center where you are located now, this is the place of love where you are standing. This is the place of witness and compassion. And it's from this center place that you can intuit the deeper forces that are working you through your menstrual cycle. So I invite you now to turn your attention to menstruation, the inner winter. Just take a moment or two to observe it, to sense it, to feel it. So with your whole body, with your attention just receiving the inner winter of your cycle. And then turning to face the next season of your inner spring. And once again, just taking some time to sense, feel, observe it. Through all of your senses, through all of your body. And then turning your attention now to the season that follows, the inner summer. And tuning in to the inner summer of your cycle. Taking some time now to observe it, to sense it. And then shifting your attention now to the inner autumn. Again, just feeling here, what's here in the inner autumn. Sensing with all of your senses. Observing. And then finally turning to face your inner winter once more. And really revisiting it. As if for the first time, just connecting with your inner winter. Just noticing what you notice. Beautiful. And now shifting your attention back into the center place. And taking a moment to ground yourself here at the center, just gathering your energy in. And acknowledging this whole cycle process that you have witnessed and experienced. And then stepping out of your cycle now and just taking a moment to find a gesture or some way to complete this experience for yourself. Maybe it's something you say to yourself quietly or a physical gesture. It brings a sense of completion. Before you let your eyes open and return your attention back into the room that you're in, the space that you're in, and having a nice moment of arrival. And if you do have a pen and paper to hand nearby, you might like to just jot down some notes of what you experienced, anything that came to you. It's a beautiful thing to kind of catch those dreams and things that come through, just to write them down. So I highly recommend that. I believe we have some time to talk with you. And one of the things I would welcome when we do that is for you, if you want to ask us any questions about your experience or anything that came up for you, that would be a wonderful thing. But over to you, Jocelyn.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. That was really, really lovely. Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
Beautiful. So I do want to go to the Q&A very soon, because I'm sure we'll have some really wonderful questions. So I encourage everybody to start raising your hands if you would like to speak with Alexandra and Shani. But also, I want to share about your free gift before we do that, so everybody can easily access that if they would like to. So I know you're offering the inner seasons of the menstrual cycle as an MP3. Would you like to say a few more words about that?
Yes, I will. So the inner seasons is a guided meditation which actually takes you through a journey of each of those seasons of the cycle, and allows you to explore each one in turn. And this is a really good way to get to know the inner seasons of your cycle as you experience them, how they show up for you. And it will give you insight into your relationship with each season, what your kind of challenges are, what your strengths are in each one. And it's a beautiful process to work with time and time again as a way to deepen into your cycle experience, or to really reveal more of what this process is that's actually happening that may be sort of unconscious in your day-to-day life. It's sort of a way of bringing things to the surface. So that's what that is there for.
Beautiful. So for those who are attending live, I just put that link in the chat so you can easily click right to it. And for those who are watching this as a recording, if you just scroll down a little bit below this interview, you will see the link to their free gift, so you can easily get to it. Also, I know that you are both presenting a really amazing offering through Tree Sisters, in connection with Tree Sisters. Would you like to say a few words about that too?
Yes, we are very, very, very privileged to have this opportunity to be offering a live online course over 7 weeks with Tree Sisters. Part of what's so wonderful about it is that we'll be raising money for trees as well as learning about the power of the menstrual cycle. So it's a win-win. You can save the planet and you can save yourself at the same time.
It's just the best possible combination of things.
Yes, I know. I mean, where can we sign up? It's called the Wild Power Course, and it's going to be really going into detail on the sort of constituent elements of what we call our power process, all the different elements that the cycle process reveals to us about our power process. And at its heart, it is about this journey of helping women to come home to themselves, to knowing who they truly are, and then how the cycle supports you to go out into the world to make that real, to manifest your calling. We absolutely love the cycle because it has both this kind of visionary, ecstatic side to it, but it is eminently practical and pragmatic. And so we're really going to go into the detail of that process with women. It's going to be very grounded, very precise, I hope very deep, and the kind of wonder of this work comes from women working together. So the sort of the different stories and processes that come up for women through this will be, in a sense, woven in. We continue to keep learning actually with it. So yes, that starts next
Tuesday.
A week today, yeah.
Tuesday the 20th. And here's something that I find very exciting, Jocelyn. As you know, you were there. There was over 600 women on that call. And for me, the idea of such a big group of women coming together with this sort of shared focus, it's...
That is, yes, really powerful. And just speaks to how we are all becoming aware of how deeply this is needed right now. Yeah. And I see on the Tree Sisters site, which I posted, or on the course site, which I posted the link here in the chat too, if anybody wants to look at that. But also for every participant, they're going to be planting 150 trees. So
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, well, wonderful. So we can go over to the Q&A now. So I encourage everybody to raise your hand so that I can bring you over to speak directly with Alexandra and Stiani. But also, if you don't want to raise your hand, you can put questions in the chat. So we will try to get to all of the questions. Jill, you're raising your hand, so I'm going to bring you over now. Hi, Jill. Welcome.
Hi.
Brilliant. Hello.
Hi. I'm on my heaviest day today, and I was speaking to a friend about menstruation today. I didn't bring it up. She highlighted because of my mood, and I haven't had menstruation for a good while. So I just think there's lots of synchronicities, and I didn't definitely know I was going to be watching this, and then it just came to me about 5 minutes beforehand. I'm going to watch this. Anyway, my question is, I was very interested when you said about boundaries. That's something that's important for me recently. And I'm only just recently getting in touch with my changing emotions since I changed my diet. So I find examples really helpful. So I don't know if you've got any examples yourself about intuition. So what happened to me literally just recently, I was looking back at the other day at myself going, I can't even believe I was that confident. I don't think I can ever be that confident. I don't know how it happened, but you know, feeling like so the opposite now and thinking, how can I be so unconfident now? But now the cycle thing's making more sense. Anyway, I had an intuition that came to me this morning, and it said, basically, I've stopped wearing glasses. I've worn glasses since I was 12, and I can barely see further than 30 centimeters. But it means that I can't connect with people. It's a real problem. But it's my choice because I find it's helpful for a spiritual reason. So anyway, I feel like I've been expressing myself, opening up, and I can't see who I'm opening up to. I know who it is. I can't see their facial expressions. I can't see their responses. So I feel like I'm opening too vulnerable. And then not feeling very good about myself. So my intuition said to me this morning, and I don't want to laugh because I really love my intuition. It said, right, when you're in this group, because it's a particular group I go to, so it's quite a boundary group in a way anyway. When you're in this group, don't communicate with people unless they are within your field of vision. So in other words, unless they're sitting right next to me. It's not about being rude, but it's about don't make yourself vulnerable. And it's quite an emotional group. People will talk about how they feel about each other in the group. So someone may be quite personal. Oh, you're like this, and getting quite judgmental and or very warm, you know, whatever. And I don't feel like I can change.
What's your question, Joe? What's your question?
My question is my intuition too strong? Do you find that your intuition sometimes comes bang, and then with time it's like, well, hang on, really it should be a bit like this? Because I'm aware to say don't communicate unless someone's really close to you.
So you're asking, are you asking, can I trust my intuition when it comes?
Yeah, I guess I feel that my intuition or my ego can change it. Usually my intuition doesn't change.
Let's stay with that for a moment. I think you're asking, I want to just feedback. So you're in the time of the cycle right now where you're most where intuition can be at its strongest, where things can come through. At least it's one place where it can come through very, very strongly. And you're asking, can I trust my intuition? I can't ultimately answer that for you. What I can say is that what does come through around menstruation can be very powerful and very direct, but you have to kind of grow into it. It's a very expanded time. You have a more kind of direct line to yourself and to something bigger than you. And actually, not only your intuition, but you can have a huge kind of download about what your life's about and so on. But it can be quite strong and huge sometimes, and you need time to kind of grow into your insights, Jill. And rather than ask the question, can I trust my intuition, I would say to you, make notes on what's coming through. Just record everything that's coming through and pace it, play with it. And kind of pace your ideas, and our experience is that those things that we sort of don't listen to actually come back again, don't they, Shani? They do pop in, Shani, and respond as well.
Yeah.
They do. They'll come back and they'll speak to you again. So that's one comment. The other thing is this is just in terms of what your intuition was, which is don't communicate. I wasn't quite sure entirely what you said, but my hunch is when you're bleeding, you're actually very exposed. And this is what I would do for myself, Jill, which is that I did not want to overexpose myself at that time. I actually wanted to, even though I was having huge insights, and even sometimes I would be hugely ecstatic. And if I was in a group, it would be like I was on drugs and I was high. But, but actually, you're very see-through, you're very thin, metaphorically speaking, your aura, and you can often have a backlash against yourself if you do expose yourself too much when you're in that very permeable time of the cycle. So when your intuition says, don't communicate, if I'm understanding you right, that could be actually very useful wisdom, to be a little contained when you're actually bleeding. But not to forget what came to you. Is any of this helpful, what I'm saying to you now?
Yes. Yes. I'm not sure. There was something that came, but it's gone.
Okay.
There was something you said about when you're at this thin level, when you're very kind of transparent, vulnerable. Yes. There can be, and if you're too exposed, yes, then you can have more of a backlash. Is that like you can have more of a? Because I know I was feeling like, oh God, that critical thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I said too much. Oh, I'm too much, and that sort of thing. Yeah, you can have that kind of it's an inner backlash. You won't get a backlash from others.
Yeah.
Can I bring something in, Jill? Because your question started with your intrigue about boundaries, and I just want to add a little piece here about boundaries in the cycle. In the second half of the cycle, from ovulation down to menstruation, we start to de-armor, and our sort of protective layering, if you like, falls away, and we become more exposed to ourselves and our feelings. We become more permeable, more sensitive, more open. And so we're more easily impacted and affected by things around us, which is a beautiful and brilliant thing. But that reaches its peak at menstruation when we are at our most exposed and at our kind of most vulnerable. And part of the kind of self-care that cycle awareness brings is when we begin to really tune into these changing energies and follow the rhythm, as you feel this contraction, which starts after ovulation, this drawing inwards, to really care for this sensitivity that's arising, it requires having more and more spaciousness in your life, and having more and more better and better boundaries. And really central to that is actually time alone. We women really need more time alone in the premenstruum. So much of that irritability and like agitation that we feel is because we're actually needing to be by ourselves. It's that spaciousness that helps to allow us to feel things so deeply. And at menstruation, even more so, it's a time of a need for real retreat and space. And it's that aloneness that allows us to really allow our full intuition, our full power, our full connection with life to flourish. It requires that protection. So that's, to me, the connection between boundaries, intuition, vulnerability, those things. And the cycle really helps you to get to know that and to really work with those energies in a way that allows the fullness to come through.
That's really interesting. It's made me realize how important it is to know and act on the cycle, because when you were saying at this time you actually need more boundaries, and I can see how if I know about this and can prepare for it, then I can create it literally by physically pulling away. Whereas if I don't know about it, what I'm starting to notice is, although I need more boundaries, it's harder to implement them on a face-to-face level. So that's really helpful.
That's it. You've completely nailed it, Jill. That's the key, and that's why we really encourage women to actively practice cycle awareness, just because actually in the act of doing it you naturally create boundaries. It's just sort of part and parcel of the practice, and then you experience less of the sort of being at the tyranny of your cycle and more empowered by the cycle.
Yeah, because when I'm building up and when I'm confident, I wouldn't say I'm enjoying the boundaries, but it's so much easier to put them in place. God.
Yeah. Well, you're naturally boundaried in that first half of the cycle. You've got much more capacity and resilience. So you kind of need the space less. You've got much more energy. You're sort of just generally much sort of more resilient emotionally. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's good to talk to you. Thank you for your question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jill, for your question.
Jocelyn, could I just come in here? I may be a postmenopausal woman who doesn't bleed anymore, but I have a nosebleed right now.
You've decided you've got to bleed somewhere.
So I am here, but excuse me if I look slightly unglamorous right now. It happened just before the call. I have them once in a blue moon, and this is the blue moon. So yes, let's keep going. Sorry, I just should alert you, that's why.
Sure. Yes, do what you need to do there.
I will.
Okay, thank you, Jill.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so we have Janet raising her hand as well. And then we do have a question in the chat from Nicola that I want to be sure to get to as well. So let me bring Janet over first. There we
Hello.
are. Welcome, Janet. Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Jocelyn, first, I just want to say thank you for offering such wonderful gifts to everybody. I'm thoroughly enjoying them.
Oh, thank you so much for attending and being a part of it, Janet.
But I'm curious with getting in touch with the cycle for us women who have been on birth control for many years and maybe being dulled from those senses. How can we stay or get more in touch and in tune when we have to stay on birth control, perhaps?
Alexandra, are you able to answer? Alexandra wrote a book all about this one, so I feel she should be the one to answer, but I'm not sure. Are you able to?
I think I'll have a go at answering, Shani, but I'm also aware that, well, of course, it was when you came off the birth control pill, actually, that things work up. All right, let me excuse my rather unglamorous look at the moment, Janet. Being on the pill does shut down the menstrual cycle, yes. And so you're going to lose all this nuancing. You're not going to have the same kind of experience at menstruation. And it's a hard call, this one, because it's important for you to have contraception. Although I'd like to suggest that there are other ways of having contraception other than hormonal contraception. But that's something, of course, one has to really negotiate and grow into for oneself. But if you are on hormonal contraception, what you can do is chart your pill-induced cycle if you're taking the pill. So you could just chart according to that, and just because even though you're on the pill, you're still not the same every day. And it's not going to have the kind of features, I have to be frank with you. But what you are doing by charting the cycle and becoming conscious you're becoming conscious of cycles in general, is you are still building a certain kind of responsiveness. And I mean, it's a bit like for men, really. They don't have a menstrual cycle. But they can sort of tune in, for instance, to the cycle of the day or the seasons of the year, and noticing how you change through that. So you can build a sort of generalized sense of cycle awareness. But sadly, you can't get the real depths that are there that the menstrual cycle itself can offer. Yes.
I might add something here, because I think the tricky thing is most of us haven't been offered options as far as contraception goes. And I feel like if this is something you're curious about, the place to start really is to explore what the options are for good contraception. And there are some really good options that will allow you to still have the cycle process and the contraception. So Alexandra's book called The Pill, Are You Sure It's For You?, which she co-authored, a good place to start because they talk about the different options and really it really helps you to think it through for yourself and really come to a place of being able to make a choice that feels good to you. So that's something to look into, Janet, if you are curious.
I will do that.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
You're very welcome. Is it Janet O'Planet? I love that.
Go-to name, yes.
Yeah, it's a good one, Janet O'Planet. Hello.
All right. Thank you so much, Janet, for your question.
Thank you.
Oh, dear.
Okay. So there's a question in the chat from Nicola that I really do want to ask both of you. What is your advice for women who are experiencing very painful menstrual cramps or who have just, very strong emotional intensity or emotional fluctuations during that premenstrual and beginning of the menstrual time? What do you recommend?
Well, I always feel that I can talk to women who have extreme menstrual problems because that's where the work all began for me. It was outrageous menstrual pain that set me off on this odyssey because I made a choice to follow my body and listen to it, and voila, where I have ended up 30 years later. So what was the name of the woman? Sorry?
Nicola.
Firstly, my heart goes out to you. And I also want to say that there is hope, that there is a way of transforming this, and that this work of cycle awareness is actually the first remedy for healing. Because what happens is the moment you come into relationship with your cycle, you're starting to manage your nervous system, you're managing stress, and you're reducing it, essentially. So it's like a soothing, it's like a medicine. The cycle awareness is like a medicine that is soothing your whole system. And you're learning to pace your own being so that you start to conduct business differently with yourself. And in particular, following the clues as you come into menstruation itself. Now, I'm not saying that this can heal all pain, on the contrary, but it can actually reduce pain for some women, it can reduce it quite a lot. For others, it doesn't necessarily reduce it so much as they come into relationship with it. And instead of it being this kind of traumatizing experience, somehow they're in relationship with it and they're working with it and they're more awake to something. And it awakens their kind of knowing about what they need to do about it, because there are so many good remedies, natural remedies out there now. I mean, when I was suffering, it felt like I was inventing the wheel in terms of healing my body. But today, there is so much good information on healing. We do have a free online course, Hormone Harmony, where we give some tips on all sorts of different menstrual health problems, where women can learn about the self-care practices, because that's self-care and cycle awareness, which is part of self-care, is absolutely the foundation. And then upon that, you then employ all sorts of other, natural remedies within that context. But Nicola, I just want to say to you very passionately and strongly, practice cycle awareness. If you can, even as you maybe feel at war with your cycle slightly, or at war at least with menstruation, can you perhaps start to develop a grudging appreciation for a grudging sort of, I don't know, oh, well, you're there, well, I suppose I'll start paying attention to you. Just coming into some kind of relationship with it and beginning to work with it. And I think you're going to find something is going to shift. I can't tell you how many stories we have of women who have really transformed. And I'm not just saying this. It isn't just sort of hyperbole. We get great stories from women writing to us, say how learning about this work has really changed everything for them around their suffering, completely easing it, and putting them in a place where they love menstruation. And so that's pain. Now, the premenstrual stuff actually in many ways is kind of easier, dare I say, because so much of the premenstrual angst is to do with not understanding the powers of the premenstrual phase and expecting ourselves to be the same all the time. But as you practice cycle awareness, you start to allow your being to shift gear. And so when you come into the premenstruum, you start to engage with yourself differently, you pace yourself differently, and the irritation and the reactivity and so on has everything to do with not having sufficient time and space and awareness to pace the powers that are trying to come through at that time. And actually, Shani, you can speak brilliantly to that, because monthly you encounter that transition and have to be thoughtful about how you negotiate it.
Yeah. I'm aware of the time. Jocelyn, how are we doing? You good to go?
Yes, we can keep going with this question.
Couple more minutes. Okay. I in practical terms, what cycle awareness or the practice of it can help you to do, especially shifting from the inner summer to the inner autumn, because the spring and summer in a way are easy because we are in the place in the cycle that is socially accepted. We're in that active doing all things to all people place, which is, what women are known and loved for all the world over. Come the inner autumn and the inner winter, we go into the sort of unacceptable phase of women where suddenly actually our needs start to come to the fore and we are having to withdraw in a way, and we're entering a different kind of energy that isn't really culturally accepted yet. So it's learning to care for that. And very simply, the one thing you can do that's going to make a huge amount of difference is slow down. When you enter the premenstruum, and you'll feel that change coming. It's like a change in mood after me. Suddenly you're like, la-di-da, life is fine. I can do everything. I'm superwoman. And then suddenly it's just, you feel utterly irritated that somebody has left something somewhere, or you just, you'll feel that happens. And that is your signal to take your foot off the accelerator, to start saying no to people, to cancel some of your plans, to take longer in the morning getting ready. In other words, be slower about your day. And just gear down in yourself, relax into yourself, and just take more time. This is going to de-escalate so much of that reactivity for you. And coming into the premenstruum, if there's one sort of guideline really, it's to rest. And that's going to really make a difference when you come into premenstrual. Go to bed earlier, sleep longer, try to have naps, just rest more. See it as the optimum. It is the optimum time for rest as women. So really lean into that, and that will ease so much tension in your body and your spirit. So that would be my suggestion there.
Thank you both so much for that. And I know we have more questions, but I think time that we do need to close the meeting. But yeah, I welcome you all to, go and check out their website, which is redschool.net. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
The free gift.
Actually, I will just mention, because the one thing we've been talking about cycle awareness, and actually for people who really want to get to grips with that, we've got an ebook called the Menstrual Cycle Awareness ebook on our website, and that's just a brilliant place to start. If you want to get into the nuts and bolts of it. That's look in our shop on redschool.net. You'll find the Menstrual Cycle Awareness ebook.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So, well, I want to thank both of you, Alexandra and Shani. Thank you so much for being here. This has been really, really a wonderful conversation. And thank you for your answers in the Q&A, all of this wisdom that you're sharing. It is so deeply needed at this time.
It has been so good, Jocelyn. And I'm feeling such huge appreciation for you for visioning this and for bringing all these wonderful people together and for just creating space for these kinds of conversations. So really huge thanks from us as well. We're very glad to be a part of this.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you to everybody out there who is attending and who is watching this as a recording. I hope you've gotten a lot out of this talk. I know that I have. And so for those who are attending the event, we don't have any other live interviews today. So I welcome you to go to the Remembering the Truth of Who We Are event website. And we have 2 more pre-recorded interviews that will be coming out at 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. So go check those out and really enjoy. And Alexandra and Shani, do you have any final last words for us before we close the meeting? Anything that you are burning to share before we end here?
The word trust your cycle, unhook from all the cultural crap, for want of a better word.
Yes, I agree.
That we've been fed, and dare to believe in your own body. Dare to believe in your menstrual cycle.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Take care.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.